Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to our Narrow Road podcast, where I, Amanda Williams, your host, and Avery Williams, your co host, are living out a countercultural life. And we're inviting you to join us. We're so glad you're here.
Hello, I'm so excited, Avery. You're back again for our homeschool podcast. And Avery had a great idea for the second part of our homeschool conversation. So let's just dive in. We are going to be talking about how to make learning fun, how to, captivate your kids and just help them to fall in love with learning so that learning is a joy and not just a
Chore?
scheduled chore. Yes.
Okay, so,
Excuse me.
rolling back to the start, let's go through all the age groups because entertaining a 4-year-old was probably vastly different than entertaining a 14-year-old and getting all the ages curious and excited about learning. So let's start with the youngest age group, toddlers to kindergarten age. How did you start homeschooling and getting them excited about school?
Sure. Well, I started by trying to replicate the public school, to be honest. In the preschool. I just remember, and I told you guys I would read you an excerpt from my homeschool journal. I will do that. I haven't had a chance to get it out of storage yet, but I did it all wrong, to be honest. And my first inkling was, okay, he had a job at preschool and he was the plant waterer. I need to go buy a plant. And it did not go well. So rule number 1, do not try to recreate the public school system in your home. That's not what homeschooling is. What homeschooling is education is an atmosphere, a discipline, and a life. And that is a quote by Charlotte Mason, somebody that I learned about probably on week 2 of homeschooling. And she was a classic educator. And so I learned a lot from her. And who was the other gal? Let me see. Susan Wise Bauer and her mom. They were some key mentors through books and things like that. And so what I learned is that age groups, yes, kind of, but more so stages of life. And they helped you kind of understand the different stages of life. The very first one was called the grammar stage. And if you remember back in the day, they actually had grammar schools.
And grammar books and grammar primers.
Yes. And so basically what the grammar means, it's your foundation. It's learning the vocabulary of something. It's learning the parameters.
It would be like a 101 class in college.
Yeah, a 101 class in college. And I'll break this down once we get through these age groups. If it's okay with you, I'll put this in an example of when we go to get a new job and what that would look like for us, how we use all of these stages. So I do want to say these stages apply to the age groups, but these stages are used in every area of our life, no matter our age. Does that make sense?
They are seen most clearly in the age groups, but they apply to everybody.
Exactly. Yep. And we are constantly using all of these stages throughout our life. So the grammar stage is the time usually from a 4-year-old to a 9-year-old. I mean, really, like Avery said, 2-year-old, as soon as they can pick up talking or singing songs. And it's chanting things, rhythms, songs. The way I was described, it was described to me, it's like you have a pegboard, if you think of a pegboard hanging in your garage, and you have a place to hang all of the different tools that you're going to use. When you're hanging up the tools, you may not know how to use all of the tools, but they're all hanging there. There's a place to, learn more about them later. And so we think of this as, think of ABCs. You're learning your alphabet letters. You don't know why you're singing this song. You don't know at that stage that all of those letters are going to form words, and those words are going to form sentences, and those sentences are going to form paragraphs and beautiful books and
1,000-word long papers.
Yes. And so yet we still allow children to sing the songs and to learn them. And as they grow older, they obviously evolve and they add more information and more understanding. And so then you move on to the dialectic stage. And this is typically your middle school age kids. but it's the time in which you've learned the foundation, and you thought, okay, this is what you taught me is right and wrong. This is the nuts and bolts of something. However, now I'm in the real world and I'm wrestling through this and it looks a little different. What do I do? And we see this a lot with middle school students. This is one of the reasons Eric wanted to be a youth pastor, and I think you love this age group as well, because they're really starting to come into their own and they're starting to think, wait a minute, you told me this, but that's not what my friend is doing at their house. And that's not what it looks like at this family's house. And so what we want to do is lean into this time period rather than reject it. And a lot of people are afraid of this, questioning. But what we're teaching our kids during this stage is that we want you to question, and it's okay to question if you can do it respectfully. And so I think you would agree there was a time period where you just wanted to say, well, what about this? Or, well, what about this? And we were open to hearing your thoughts as long as you were respectful about them.
Well, it reminds me of this quote that was, I think it was a French colonel who was working with American troops during the Revolutionary War. And he basically was writing to one of his other war buddies, and he's like, with my French troops, if I say, go do this, they do it. With these American troops, if I say, go do this, they want to know why. Why do we have to do this? Why do we have to do it this way? And I think it's definitely at that age where kids become a lot more observant. And so they're observing everything that's going on in the world. And it's well, who said it had to be that way? Who said traffic lights had to be green? Why couldn't they be purple or rainbow or such a cool color? And you definitely see that, I work with youth kids a lot, and that's when they really start questioning faith and all of those things. But it's also the best time because when they're questioning those things, if you have the right answers, you will cement them in, whatever you want. Because if you can answer those questions and you're not afraid of them asking them.
Yeah.
I think so much of the time teenagers, middle schoolers, they just get shut down for questioning things, and then they don't want to do it at all because if they can't get a good reason why they should do it, if you're just going to go because I said so, then they're going to be like, well, who cares?
Yeah, they kind of feel like they want to rebel. So true. And then the third stage, and we'll come back to each of these in more depth, but the third stage is the rhetorical stage or the rhetorician. And that's when you've learned something, the foundation of something, you've been able to kind of wrestle through it and ask deep questions about it, formulate your own thoughts and your own trial and error. And then you've come to the point where you can now teach somebody else how to do something. And that is typically what we see in our high school years and beyond. But back to the grammar stage. So this is the time period when you have the little child who wants you to read the same bedtime story over and over again until you have it memorized. And they want repetition. So in this stage, in a classical learning, teaches you repetition, repetition, repetition. And that is how we take things from our short-term memory to our long-term memory. And there's a quote by G.K. Chesterton, that is my absolute favorite. And it's about this stage in life. And he says, because children have abounding vitality, because they are in spirit fierce and free, therefore they want things repeated and unchanged. They always say, do it again. And the grown-up person does it again until he is nearly dead. For grown-up people are not strong enough to exult in monotony, but perhaps God is strong enough to exult in monotony. It is possible that God says every morning, do it again to the sun, and every evening, do it again to the moon. It may not be automatic necessity that makes all daisies alike. It may be that God makes every daisy separately, but has never gotten tired of making them. It may be that he has the eternal appetite of infancy, for we have sinned and grown old, and our Father is younger than we. And so I think this is a beautiful depiction of the grammar stage. And so can you think of, in your homeschool journey, can you remember back to your grammar stage? What kind of things we did?
Probably the later stages of it, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, if we're going, like, young, like, as young as possible, the only thing I remember from that section of school was when Mom let me have ice cream before lunch. Core memory there. Best thing ever. Well, I remember very clearly. We were in our butter yellow homeschool room
Oh, yes.
on, like, a fold-out card table, and we were eating a huge bowl of ice cream. Like, the thing was as big as my face.
I wonder why I did that. What, did it go out along with the story, or?
I don't even know. I just remember, all I remember was I ran out to my friends after they got back home from public schools, and I had to wait 4 hours to tell them, and I got to go, my mom let me have ice cream before lunch.
That's funny.
But definitely, yeah, a lot of we did it over again and over again and over again.
Songs, chants, all those kind of things.
Songs, chants, workbooks, like even going up into the upper levels of middle school, you still are doing the same thing over again and over again.
Yeah, just at a different level and depth. And
It strikes me as something like at camp when we were working with younger campers, we always got told, if you're going to do anything with one camper, you better be prepared to do it for the rest of the week. So we were very well cautioned with piggyback rides. They're like, you are going to have a camper, and they're going to want a piggyback ride, and you better be careful. Because if you say yes, your back will never be the same.
Yeah.
But I also remember, like, we would do it, there would be, like, a certain amount of times that, like, we would do it before we moved on, whether it be
7 times.
Like, even with Saxon Math, because it was a spiral curriculum, we were always going back, oh, we're learning about addition. Again.
Yeah.
We're learning about subtraction. Again. And there were definitely times where it felt monotonous, but also times where it was kind of almost comforting because you knew what was coming and you already knew how to do it, so you had a lot more confidence in yourself, for sure.
Yep, for sure. And I think in that grammar stage, I remember you were tagging along. You were 2.5, Aiden was 4. And in the class, they were learning a song to memorize the periodic table.
Yeah.
Or the first 12 elements or something. And I just remember you coming home and just singing the whole thing at supper at 2.5. And everybody was like, why would you teach your 2.5-year-old the periodic table? And I'm like, I don't know. This is just what we're doing. And I think it was really cool because so then you repeated it again 3 years later. And I think the depth to what you learned. I think then when we did it again, we made, do you remember periodic table cookies?
Yes.
We made homemade cookies and I gave you guys little white pearls and you got to put the atoms and the protons and the electrons and all those kinds of things. So you had wanted to dive in a little bit to how we made school fun in each stage. And so, I guess I can give you some of the things that we did.
Yeah.
So I think I just kind of wanted to engage your senses. And so, if we could eat or drink something, that was always a good thing. I would use smells, like we would have a candle or a diffuser with oils. And then from there, we would kind of lean into what your learning style was or my teaching style was. So there's 3 different kinds of learning styles that we'll focus on. The first one's visual. The second one is auditory. And the third one is kinesthetic. And typically kids can be 2 of the 3. I mean, you can be all of them. You usually have a stronger one. So Aiden was my first student. He was highly visual, just like me. And we weren't really kinesthetic or auditory. So we were bopping along. And then here comes Avery, and she wants to touch everything and feel everything and rub her fingers on it and eat it and do all the things. And then I would notice with you, if we sang a song, you had it down pat. Aiden and I would need to see the words. We'd need to write it out. And I just thought, oh my goodness, I need to figure out different learning styles. And so Avery was definitely auditory and kinesthetic. So I remember when we were in ancient history, learning about fossils or mummies and things like that, you better bet your bottom dollar that we were mummifying a Barbie or a chicken. You were digging in the sand with your little tools that I hid, fake treasures or whatever. You were all in with your hands, and then you were listening to a story about, ancient Egypt or something. So yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Well, and like on that topic, it also makes me like ask, you've sent 6 kids to the foundations area now. What have been like the biggest curveballs that like each individual child has kind of thrown you on? And it's okay if you like can't think of something specific off the top of your head. I was just curious with like, because Jordan and Aiden are relatively similar.
Learning styles, yeah.
Like Jocelyn is so different from even Aiden and I. Because she's definitely more, she's like very, very auditory and yet still kind of visual in some ways.
Like think of the Spot It game. She's extremely visual, but yet she loves stories, but yet then she'll read. I mean, yeah, she's very bright. Very, very bright. I wouldn't say she's as much kinesthetic.
Yeah, definitely Samson, I would say, would be the most kinesthetic out of the younger 4. I also think it's interesting. Yeah.
Always something in his hands.
How, like, kinesthetic also works with more mechanical stuff, because I'd say that Samson and I are probably the most mechanically minded out of most of the family.
Yeah, I agree.
And so it's just interesting how all the different learning styles go along.
Yeah. I would say some of the biggest curveballs that I had when you and Aiden were little is I wasn't prepared for the love you had for learning. You guys were always eager to learn something. You were always telling me what you wanted to learn, and I was, excited to be in charge and be the teacher, but I had no idea what I was doing. And so it was like, I want to learn cursive. How do I write my name? Or, we weren't even reading yet, and you guys were trying to read signs on the restaurants when we're driving down the road, and I just was so overwhelmed and always felt like I was behind the 8 ball with you guys. And so I have learned very quickly that planning, and always thinking 10 steps ahead would be the only way that I would be able to be somewhat of a blessing to you guys. So with the younger kids now, I think, they've had several years of public school, and I think they all, my curveball was that when they first came, we read a read aloud book, as we often do. And it was very hard for them to enjoy the story. It was very hard for them to sit for very long. And it seemed as if they hated reading. And I thought, what are we going to do? But just slowly over time, continuing to delight their senses, get them up and moving, just changing the way they learned, I think really helped. And now they're just, I think they just devour book series, and they love to do their cursive and learn new things. And
Jocelyn reads more books than I do, and she can read faster than I can.
Well, she has a lot of time. You loved being outside, and you were very active. She'd be very content to cuddle up, near the fireplace and read for 10 hours. So there's different personalities too. But I just try to make it fun. I try to, make the education the atmosphere. So I think, in our earlier stages too, I would notice there was times when we would have a very, very busy day, like dental appointments, whatever it was. And I just thought, we can't not do school. And so I went to Dollar General and I bought a bunch of glow sticks. I don't know if you remember these things.
Yes, I remember them well. Night school.
So I would surprise the kids, and I would lay out our stuff, and I would have those glow stick glasses and the bracelets and the necklaces and the rings, and I'd have popcorn, and I'd have, what did we have? Kombuchas back then. And I would be like, we have night school. And they were so excited. And we had a ball, and we got everything done in like 2-3 hours, and then went to bed, and you guys thought it was the greatest thing. So I've done that twice now with the younger 4, and they loved it too.
And like something that I almost remember so much off the top of my head is like I was excited to learn. Well, because like being a lead learner was definitely fostered by you, my mom, like that we were always learning and always should be learning. But also I remember very distinctly thinking, oh, I can't wait for school today because I can't wait to see what fun thing that related to whatever we're learning we get to do. So, like, I can't wait to see, like, because we also went shopping with you. And so we knew when you were buying cool stuff. And so then we were just excited to find out when we got to use the cool stuff.
Yes, so true. And now there's Amazon, so the kids are just dying to look in the packages to find out what I bought. Yeah, I love a theme. And I remember when I first started out homeschooling, there's something called unit studies. And so for those of you that aren't privy to, what that would be, it's like, okay, we're going to learn about the letter A today. So we're going to have an apple snack, and we are going to write the word apple, and we're going to read books about apples. And I mean, there's so many, every aspect of life had to be about this theme. And then the next day you'd get up and you'd do the letter B. And by the letter C, I was burnt out. I thought, there's no way this is sustainable. And so I quickly learned that although I love a theme, I wasn't going to be able to sustain something like that. And so this classical learning is what was super helpful for me, because it basically was like the skeleton of what we were going to learn. I remember I was very nervous when the kids were young. What if I miss something? What if I can't teach them everything? And it was very humbling to learn a couple years as we went in that, we are serving we are finite man, and we're learning about an infinite God. There is no way we will ever learn everything there is to know. And why on God's green earth would we want our child to do all of their learning the first 18 years of their life?
Yeah.
Like, we are teaching you and we're adding tools to your toolbox so that that's the launching pad. Like, you are just now equipped and ready to go out and continue the learning.
Well, and also, like, with how much the economy and the world is changing now, you can't honestly definitively say the thing that you're going to college for is going to be the thing that you're going to be doing for the rest of your life, like your forefathers did. Like, in general, probably Grandpa Jeff could have gone to college to be an accountant, and it'd be generally assured that he's still going to be an accountant now. No job, like singular profession besides trade schools, are really safe from either automation or simplification, or just completely things getting upended on their heads with how much technology is improving. And so you need to be prepared to relearn a whole new profession 20 years down the line. And if you haven't taught your kids how to learn outside of a structured learning environment, it's going to be kind of a problem.
Right. I mean, even in my age, we didn't even know what the internet was. We didn't know what blogging was. There was no social media. There was no influencers, no affiliate links. You know what I'm saying? There was none of that. And so there was no way we could have been prepared for that in school. Obviously, as technology changes, we have to do the work to learn how to do these jobs. There's no podcasts, things like that. So I agree. And so basically what we believe is that we're filling your toolbox with tools that you'll be able to use for the rest of your life. So other things we did, food parties, like for Jordan's class right now when they're studying, what was it yesterday? Asia, I believe. And so I brought in some seaweed snacks, some fun Asian pops, some little snacky foods. Tonight we had, what is that called?
Fried rice.
Yes, thank you.
And egg
Chicken
rolls.
fried rice and egg rolls. And so just any way that you can make it fun for your kiddo when they're learning something, how can you take it deeper for them to help them remember? So the classical education does teach that the more of the five senses that you're using, the more memorable it will be. Thus, Avery remembering having ice cream before lunch. Now, had I been really good at what I was doing and I had attached that to a lesson, that would have been great too. I don't remember what we were doing.
You probably did, and I was
Just
5
with the
and really liked ice cream.
Probably. Yeah. But I would also teach the kids too, like when we were broaching a tough subject. Okay, like we just did this the other day with the young kids. It was making change, counting however many cents up to $1. And I just went right into my normal mode. I'm like, all right, you guys, we are going to be detectives. This is going to be so much fun. And I think I even said to him, like, not very many people know how to count change anymore, but you guys are going to know. It's going to be so cool. You guys could even get a job at the movie theater and you could work in the concession stand and you guys could give people their change back. And so we had a lot of fun being detectives, figuring out how to count back change. And I am like, I've got a secret tip I can teach you. And they're like, okay, their eyes are big and whatever. And I think sometimes it's like creating the mystery behind things. And it's like, we're unlocking a secret door and it's just for you and it's going to change everything. And so the Bible verse that I think originally gave me that idea, I was reading in Proverbs 25:2. It is the glory of God to conceal a matter and the glory of kings to search things out. So not exactly 100% in context because we're not kings, but it is a glory to search out the Lord.
Dialect this real quick.
Yes.
If we are all sons and daughters of the one true king, wouldn't that make us kings of or princes?
I guess that's true. That is so true. But yeah, it's just basically saying it's a delight. And I think I remember telling you and Aiden when you were young, learning is fun. We don't want to say, oh, let's hurry up and get done with our school so we can go do the fun things. Like the learning is the fun thing. And that God has hidden these little nuggets and these mysteries in creation and in numbers and in words. And we're going to go and we're going to search them out and we're going to discover the hidden treasure and see what God has for us today. And I don't know if it ever inspired you, but it always did me as a mom, thinking as we come across these hard things, like this is a gift. This is a treasure. And so a couple books that I would recommend if you're just getting started and you're not quite sure what classical learning is. The Well-Trained Mind is an amazing guide to classical education at home. It's by Susan Wise Bauer and Jessie Wise, a mother-daughter team. And just reading her introduction had me in tears. She kind of just talks about, public school and not putting it down in any way, shape, or form. But it was basically just saying her daughter was learning leaps and bounds at home as a little girl, just toddling around with her mom. And when she went to the public school, she was quite advanced and she could read a lot. And it was becoming a bit of a burden on the teacher just because, the teacher is so inundated with the tasks that she needs to accomplish. And she has a lot of kids. And so it's no fault to him or her that are doing the teaching. But they had asked her if they would please stop reading books to her at home because it was causing problems at school. And so she was struggling with that. And I think this was back in the time period too, where homeschooling wasn't even legal yet. And so she's basically just talking about how to view their schooling. And I think I talked a lot about pacing in the last episode. If your child needs to slow down and learn something deeper, or it takes a little bit more time to catch on versus they're advanced and they need to move forward so they're not bored. All of those things come into play. And not every subject is going to be at the same pace, I don't think. Some subjects are a little easier than others. But this book basically gives you that whole introduction as to how you can help your child work at their own pace. And she even goes all the way into the back. There is a schedule for every little thing. There's audiobook suggestions. There's scheduling suggestions. It's just a fantastic book.
That sounds like an amazing resource.
It is, and I remember reading it from cover to cover, and it was just like, oh, I'm so thankful for whoever recommended it. And then there's 3 books that kind of help dive into these stages we were talking about, the grammar, the dialectic, and the rhetorician.
Yes.
The book that I would recommend for the grammar stage is called The Core by Lee Bortons. She's the founder of Classical Conversations. But even if you're not into classical conversations, it's just a great understanding of classical education and how the student's brain works. So the core would be for the grammar stage. The conversation is the dialectic. And this talks a lot about that wrestling through topics and thinking about deeper things and wondering how it's going to play out in their life with a biblical worldview. And then the question is the rhetorician stage, all by Lee Bortons. So would recommend those.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And so diving into some more stages and stuff.
Yeah.
What would you say to okay, this mom just started homeschooling and she's
Okay.
got a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 16-year-old. And they've come from public school where it's reading, writing, math, science.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're having to learn, why am I having to learn about people, philosophers, and why am I learning all this stuff? What use will it be? More that, again, rhetorician of questioning, but then going into it of why we're learning it, but also different ways that they can voice their opinion in a respectful manner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think when they're learning about those types of things, it's good. It's similar with, we learned about different religions. We're Christians. We love Jesus. We believe he died on the cross for our sins. But it was beneficial for us to learn about other religions or other philosophies and the different philosophers, especially the philosophers, to know where ideas came from, how they've progressed over time, which ones stayed and matched up with scripture, which ones kind of veered off. What did that do to history? What did it do to cultures? What did it do to the family? There's so much you can learn from looking at things that maybe don't line up with your beliefs, but just to understand where other people are coming from.
For sure.
And then we also want to get to a stage in life where, you guys go off to college, you might be sitting at the cafeteria across the table from, someone from the Muslim religion or an atheist, and you at least have some idea of what they believe or how they got there, maybe what the similarities or differences are between our beliefs, and you have a starting point. And then you've practiced all along this dialectic. You've already wrestled yourself through some of these ideas, and you have a firm standing in your faith. And then now you're a rhetorician, and you can ask good questions to help draw them to truth. And you can do so in a way that's unifying. We don't see that a lot today. So it's very countercultural, and it's very difficult. And so we try practicing that from a very young age. So I would say for that, would you say 10, 12, and 16-year-old, it's definitely going to be a change from public school. And I would just say to the mom who's entering into that phase, just to enjoy the conversations, just to do a lot of the reading, lots of talking, lots of thinking through things, and just not worrying about the seat work and any of that kind of thing. I think it's the ideas and just learning how to think, not necessarily what to think, and being able to formulate or articulate, I guess I should say, your thoughts and your truth, biblical worldview. So,
okay, so then here's another question, more referencing on the public school side. What would you say to the mom who says, okay, I only went through high school, I'm not qualified?
Yeah. I think that's just one of the sayings that goes around, one of the fears. And I just want you to stop and think, you've probably birthed these children, or you've adopted them, and their story, better than anybody else. And you love them more than anybody else. So I can't think of anyone more perfect for your children than you. It doesn't matter. I've never been to college to be a teacher. And I'm going on my second graduate, and literally they are far more advanced in certain subjects than I will ever be. I mean, you and Aiden know more about things, and that's to the credit of the Lord in this classical education. I don't want you guys to cap out where I'm capped out. I've done, hopefully, a good enough job filling your toolbox, teaching you how to learn, so that you, as an individual who are very much different than me, can take that and go learn the things you're interested in.
For sure.
I'm not interested in criminal justice. You are. So that's great. And I see you taking that by storm. Aiden was interested in very advanced mathematics. Not me. But he didn't need me to learn advanced mathematics because he knew how to learn. He knew how to read a textbook. He knew how to make sense of things, and he had the tools to do so. So I don't want you as a mom to think that your academic accolades or lack thereof would limit or promote your child's education. You are just being a lead learner. You're showing your child that you love to learn and you're trying new things and you do it alongside of them. And yes, of course, there are times where, maybe you're trying to teach something and you don't know, because we're also redeeming our education. That we have holes too. We have lacking. We have areas that we've been traumatized. We're horrible at this, so we must not be able to teach someone else. But if they say, wow, mom is not a good speller, but she's here writing these spelling words with me, like she wants to learn with me, how cool for the child. And so, yes, you can reach out to other people that maybe have a skill or a desire or a love for that subject. And you can ask for help for sure. But for the most part, it's teaching them how to learn and giving them the tools to do so.
So then another question to roll, kind of in the same vein of that, is there a place for public school among homeschoolers, vice versa? Like, how do you integrate those things? Do you think, okay, like all the public school activities are also offered through like a homeschool co-op or a homeschool thing? Is there benefit to your kids going to the public school for some things versus homeschool?
Yeah. I think it depends on your family. I think it depends on the needs of your child. I think it depends on what your family goals are. For our family, our goals were just to raise sturdy kids and just to give them a biblical worldview and to go out into the world with them, like I talked about in the previous podcast, not to shelter. But we did a lot of things through the rec center. When you were younger, it was like $25 for 6 weeks, and you got to try all the different sports. And so we tried sports, we tried music, we tried band. When you're little, I just let you try all the things, 4-H, farm stuff. And then you can kind of see what your child's bent is, what their gift mix is, what they enjoy, what they don't enjoy. And of course that can grow and change, but it gives you a good jumping off point. And so my goal in that was to let you guys see what you liked and what you disliked. And then from there, we had to make decisions. Okay, so you liked running. Where can we get involved in running? Well, we can get involved in middle school through the public school if we wanted. There wasn't really any other opportunity. We felt like it would be an okay option. It was, 4 days a week after school. It wasn't taking away from any of our family goals or our family time. It was something we could commit to together. And so we did that. Aiden did football for a little bit. That was a lot of fun. You guys also integrated for band for a couple years. I think that was fun. And then when it wasn't fun anymore, then, we moved on. Volleyball, you did that. Wrestling in your high school years.
And then there are also other times like where we opted for something outside the public school, like with chore or dance.
Choir. Yep, there was like a choir option at the public school and there was one outside of the public school. We assessed both options, chose the one that would work best for our family goals, and went with that. So we had nothing against our public school. Like I said in the last episode, I had a great public school experience. Nothing traumatizing, just this was what God called us to do. So yeah, we definitely have done dances through the school, with our sports, and trying to think if there was other things we've done. Mostly music, band.
Done speech, and then I also did high school mock trial.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so we've tried a little bit of just whatever would bless our family. I think, you're in charge of your family and you're in charge of your schedule, and there's no pressure to get involved in the public school for socialization or whatever. But if it blesses you, use it. Your tax dollars go there, so you have the right.
And on the note of like using public school, and I would definitely say since you're homeschooled and you have the ability to kind of dual enroll wherever you want.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that, definitely look into what different districts offer and which ones are best suited towards your family.
Yeah.
For sure, because they're like, oh, this district offers a lot more academic stuff, and my kids don't really care about sports at all.
Yeah.
They would love to have a robotics team. We're going to go over here.
Yep.
Or my kid only cares about sports. They could care less if they could go take a mock trial and speech class.
Yeah.
We're going to go to this district over here.
Yeah. They have better opportunity there. For sure.
Okay, so if a brand new mom walked up to you and goes, I'm going to start homeschooling, hell, what would be like the things that you would say, or what would, if you were that mom, what would you want to be told?
Sure. This has happened 1,000 times.
I'm aware.
So I most of the time would invite them over because there's just a lot to talk about and I don't want them to feel overwhelmed. The first thing I do is I take them to our state site, the Homeschool Iowa, and I tell them the different options for homeschooling.
For possible out-of-state listeners, I don't know if we have any out-of-state listeners, but do most states have a homeschool site?
Yep, they will all have a homeschool site, and it will tell them the homeschool laws in their area. It'll have all the PDF forms if there's something they need to fill out. And so I basically just walk them through that. I even print the forms off for them so they have them. And I walk them through. In Iowa, we have several different options of things you could do. If you're not dual enrolling in the school and you don't have an IEP and you don't need any assistance from them whatsoever, we are not required to report anything. If you want to dual enroll in the school, then you have a couple options. You can either get a supervising teacher, which most of the time, if you can find a friend who has a teaching certificate, they'll pop in and look at your kids' work maybe once a quarter. And they're by law required to say, okay, is this child learning? Have they learned, have they progressed from day one to what I'm seeing now? They'll sign a little form and you move on with your life. You could have your kids do the Iowa Test of Basic Skills or whatever the testing is.
ISAPS.
Or you could just do the portfolio option. The portfolio option is basically where they just see little samples of the kids' work and photographs. It's supposed to be like a scrapbook type thing that they can look through what you've done. And because we have a lot of family.
Lots of family. Yeah, too much family.
Kind of just getting started on Facebook and realizing that would be a really good way to save on stamps and printing pictures and all the things. I just started making an album back in the day when they had albums on Facebook and just saying to the supervising teacher, could you just pop on Facebook and look at the album? And she was like, sure. And so I just still do that today. I call it a peek at my week. So anyway, I would just kind of help the mom understand this is what the law requires, what works best for you, and help them. Then they would need to kind of discover what kind of education they wanted to do. There's modern education where you have all your strands, you have all your classes like math, reading, that kind of thing. Then you can have a Christian education, which is the same thing, math, reading, art, PE, you just add Bible. Then there's the classical Christian education, which is what we chose. And that's if you draw a catechesis wheel or just a circle and you put God's name right in the center. And then there's these arrows pointing out to the different classes that you're going to be teaching: research, reasoning, logic, exposition, grammar, debate. Those are your math, all the things that you would do in public school, but you're taught in a way that you know God and make him known. So math is pointing to God and we can see him in all of the patterns, and he is pointing back to math to show like Fibonacci's code and all the number, I can't even think now, but the arrows are pointing back and forth between God and the classes. And so he's not just a separate subject. He is the whole focus. And so once they can decide what kind of education they want, that's very helpful. Then they can look at curriculums and things like that. And then they'll learn over time what kind of student they have, what their learning style is, and what their teaching style is.
For sure. Also, she's doing great. I'm just throwing these questions at her on the fly. So here's another curveball. Okay. What is the difference between homeschool and unschooling?
Okay, that's a really good question. Homeschooling is where you are educating the child in your home. and it's 24/7. I guess it doesn't even have to be in your home, but it's the home environment. There's field trips and outside and all the things involved. Unschooling is, I don't have the exact definition, so if there's somebody that unschools, please forgive me if I mess this up, but it's more so like guided learning. So you don't have like a direct plan or a curriculum. You just allow your child to exist naturally. And, you go to the library or you go to the park or whatever. And as your child reads a book or sees a bug or something they're interested in, that's when you start pursuing that. So if they saw a ladybug and they played with the ladybug at the park, you'd then maybe go to the library and get ladybug books, or you'd have a sensory bin with bugs or whatever. You kind of let them pick what they want to learn. Some moms do it a little bit more in a controlled environment where they'll set things around the home that maybe they want the child to be interested in. And then as the child navigates to a certain thing, they'll kind of dive deeper into that. So
For sure.
it's a little bit different style.
Okay, here is, I think, one that I think a lot of people would have questions about. Graduation. How do they get into college? Do they get into good colleges? Can homeschoolers get into Ivy Leagues? How would you make sure that, people know that they actually learn stuff? Do they do good in college?
Yes, very good in college. You're a good example for that. So homeschooling is no different than going to the school. You're learning. You keep a transcript. You'll turn that into the college. You can find them online. You can just download a template, and you just keep track of things. You keep track of your kids in high school, mostly. You want to keep track of how are they doing in math? How are they doing in the different classes? And you assign the grades based on the points that they've earned and things. And then it shows their GPA, and you can make extra credit if you need to, or you can, deduct things if you need to. And then you'll send that off to the college. The college isn't super concerned, to be honest with you, what your transcript says. They are concerned that you have one, but they really don't care because they know that this is just the scores in your high school work. What they want to know is, what are you going to do now? They're to the point now where they don't even care about the SAT and the ACT. A lot of colleges are doing away with that. They want you to take their own formatted tests for their school and see where you're placed. And so we've had to jump through a lot of hoops, and there's been a lot of stress for nothing. When you guys were little, it was like, okay, we've got to get these transcripts, and we've got to make sure we're paying attention, and we got to give them real grades in high school, and all that was good. But we walk in with Aiden, and they're like, yeah, we don't really care about ACT and SAT. Now, if you did get a good score, they give you an extra $500 off your tuition.
And there are definitely, Ivy League schools and whatnot who do still care about ACT and SAT. I would say, though, from my, this is me answering my own question a little bit. From the research that I've done, Ivy League schools like homeschool kids better.
They do.
Because we're better at, self-motivated work, and we're also generally better at, once we get into grad school and stuff, these self-motivated research projects, they're thinkers. We got taught how to think and how to argue and how to do all the things from a younger age, and so we just are kind of better at it.
Yep. Yeah, you do hear that a lot from colleges. We actually really enjoy the homeschool students. We can tell, for the most part. I think if there are homeschool students that don't get a lot of learning done, and they're probably not the ones that are applying to college. I mean, that's fair, right? I mean, if they're not into learning and they're not enjoying it, or they have some learning disabilities, or they're not looking to go to college, they would love to get into a trade or, a family business or something, those are amazing options too. I was just looking up, it does say, yes, Harvard requires applicants to submit SAT or ACT scores. They're reinstating the policy for the class of 2029 after a temporary test optional period during the pandemic. But basically, then they're going to fill the requirement of their key tests. So it's very interesting. And it says no minimum score. They don't have a minimum score that you can get in with. So it's kind of interesting. It's like, oh, we do this test because that's what we've always done. But I honestly don't believe the way we test tells us what we know anyway. So.
Oh, yeah. The idea of multiple choice tests make me laugh so much because you have a 25% chance of getting it right. A.
Yeah.
And then B, you can guess. Like, if you, because of how my brain works, I have decently good pattern recognition.
You've always been good at patterns.
And so if you stare at, like, the math questions long enough and you have enough logical deduction, you can go, okay, it's probably between these two. And, the pattern's gone like this. So I'm just going to shoot in the dark with this. I had taken it halfway through my sophomore year and I'd gotten, 21 on the ACT. And so they're kind of funny.
Yeah.
And also you might just have kids that test really badly.
Yeah.
Because they just don't function well in those standardized
Stressful
tests.
environments, yeah, for sure. But yeah, so it's just one of those things that as times are changing, we're to the point now where colleges want your money.
Mm-hmm.
They're a money-making business. They want to stay in business. They want you to do well when you're there, because when you go to college, they want to tell you, here's our statistics. This is how people succeed here. This is how many people graduate from here. This is how many people can get a job. They want you to succeed and they want your money. And so taking that stress off your shoulders, it is not hard for a student to get into a college. So yeah, it's definitely easier to get in when you have better grades to a more expensive college. But
I think I've found, we're at a pretty good area to kind of wrap this episode. Are there any final thoughts, or?
I don't think so. I think we recommended the books. We've kind of talked quite a bit about a lot of things. I guess I'm just interested if people have questions.
Yeah, I would definitely say, if you guys want to do a question episode where you guys send in questions, we would be happy to answer a bunch of questions about homeschool or anything else.
Yeah, it's hard when you are just talk, and I'm like, I don't know if this is helpful or if you guys have been making more questions or if it's, helpful. So I would love to hear from you just to see where you guys want to go next.
But yeah, thank you for listening, and we will catch you in the next one.
Yes, we'll have part 3 soon. Bye-bye.